Okay, we're continuing with the book Best Christian Art. We're in the chapter about the birth and childhood of Christ, and these paintings are extraordinarily beautiful. So this painter is William Bouguereau, and a ton of magnificent art happened in 1881. It was one of the greatest in 1880 in the 1800s. It's one of the greatest centuries ever for art. So this is the Song of the Angels with Madonna and Child. You know, isn't that just beautiful? I mean, if you don't love that, then you don't love mankind, okay? I mean, it's just magnificent. It's just beautiful, okay? All right, so here's another painting by William Bouguereau, and you see the same thing. This is called Innocence, all right? And it's just perfect, okay? There's happiness. There's life right there. There's goodness, everything you want. Okay, here's another picture of Madonna, and I like this Madonna. She looks a little tired. She's been up all night taking care of the baby. This one's called Madonna with the Lilies and the Angels by Sandro Botticelli from 1478. So yeah, there was some great art in the 1400s. Botticelli and Rogier van der Weyden are the two best ones. Okay, this painting is very nice. Madonna and Child with Canon van der Peel. So Canon van der Peel is like donated money to have the painting made. And, the donors often are on their knees, kneeling, praying for these types of paintings. And it's a bit of a sacred conversation. You have saints in the picture as well. One of the things, sort of, what this was about, this was done way back in 1436. The idea that because they now had better techniques of oil painting, they could paint with much more detail. So if you look at the fine detail, it's very impressive compared to earlier paintings. Okay, here is the Virgin Mary Guadalupe. It's an unknown painter around 1700. And, Hispanic people are really religious. The Mexicans, the Puerto Ricans. My mom, by modern standards, she'd be like a religious fanatic. She's the nicest person I ever met in my whole life, the best person I ever met in my whole life. Wherever my mom was, people were laughing and joking and happy. So anyways, this is great, and, it enriches their lives, okay? Again, Christianity, it's the friend of the little guy. Power people want atheism so they can be, so-called gods on earth. All right. Here is the Holy Family, Doni Tondo, the round painting, portrait painting by Michelangelo. And you can see Michelangelo's painting. He often doesn't have much in the way of a landscape in the background. His color is better than it usually is, but he often doesn't care that much about color either. But he's still, he's magnificent at drawing. So it's a nice painting. A little bit, he's often interested in the complex positioning of the figures rather than the emotional component of it. I just like that one because it's relatively unique. Okay. This right here, actually, let me get it a little bit better position here. Yeah, I kind of don't have all the, room to show it. I'm on full screen, but I can't fit the whole painting in the screen. So just another beautiful Madonna by Sandro Botticelli. And again, she's got the blue for the heavens, the red for love, charity, and perhaps symbolic of Christ's faith. Okay. Okay, here's another one. This one is by Fra Filippo Lippi, and you kind of see that there's a similarity in the style of the Italians for painting the Madonnas, and, they're just beautiful. There's a lot of Madonnas, a lot of teaching about Madonnas. Okay, this is actually one of my favorite ones here. This is called The Sistine Madonna and Child by Raphael from 1514, and this painting was requested by Pope Julius in honor of his uncle Pope Sixtus, who had who's in the painting and for whom the Sistine Chapel is named. And he had the side walls painted of the Sistine Chapel. It wasn't later till Michelangelo came along to paint the ceiling. I know a lady doctor who looks just like this picture. These angels are very famous. Those are the angels that are featured on a lot of things, including one of the Van Halen album covers where they have them smoking cigarettes. They're, cute. Okay, so anyway, it's very nice, very real face of a woman there. And here's Pope Julius, and I love Pope Julius because, like I said, people criticize the Catholic Church, and Martin Luther criticized the Catholic Church. Oh, they're corrupt, they waste too much money. You know what? Look what the guy did. He got on a horse and he fought against the French, the Spanish invading, and the other papal states, the other city-states in Italy trying to take over the papal states. Okay, what more could you ask a guy to do than that? Number one. Number two, he recommissioned to improve St. Peter's Basilica, one of the greatest church cathedrals in the whole world. The beautiful Vatican looks like hands out there with all the beautiful statues later came along from Bernini, sort of the Michelangelo sculptor of the 1600s. He commissioned Raphael to paint the Stanza Signature, made the School of Athens, one of the best paintings of all time. The Sistine Chapel by Michelangelo. What more could a guy do? Okay, they paid for all these scholars to study literature, arts, and the old Greek and Latin books, and keep all that knowledge of Western civilization alive. And that's exactly what the church should be doing. And people will criticize him, because he had kids and maybe he had syphilis. I don't know for sure about the syphilis or not. But good, it's normal for guys to like women. Okay, we like women. We can't help it. We just do. And there's the vast majority of guys like women, okay? And you know what? That motivates us and inspires us. If you allow guys who like women to be priests and cardinals and all this other stuff and popes, you'll have much better quality of men to compete, okay? You'll have a much bigger talent pool to draw from. Other things about Pope Julius. The reason he had a beard was he said he was going to keep his beard on until France had been fully removed from Italy. Okay, and the Pope in the Vatican had real threats. I mean, look at 1527 when Frederick V sacked Rome. The Holy Roman Emperor. Okay, not good. It's actually Charles V. Okay, so yeah, I like Pope Julius, and the movie of him with Michelangelo, The Agony and the Ecstasy. It's a great movie. It's one of the all-time great movies. If you want to see a movie about the life of an artist, The Agony and the Ecstasy about Michelangelo. And Pope Julius, and Raphael's in it too, is awesome. The other great movie about artistic genius, I would say, is Amadeus. Those are the two best ones. Okay, here's the Pope asking Michelangelo, let me shrink myself here, asking Michelangelo here and Bramante, and there's Raphael, to design St. Peter's Basilica. Raphael helped out with it too. Michelangelo especially did the dome. Bramante did a lot of the rest of it. So that's big stuff. That's exactly what you would hope a pope was doing. Okay, I do comment in this place and elsewhere, the psychology of Christianity is better than the psychology of psychology. Modern psychology funnels people into divorce and sends them down the path of psych meds that don't work. Christianity gives people real role models, the saints, Mary, Jesus Christu. Okay. William Durant said, the Pope Julius helped design the greatest art museum in the world. He transferred the Renaissance from Florence to Rome. Yep. Pretty impressive. And that's a relatively unique thing about Christianity and Western civilization. It loves painting, okay? All this stuff about all cultures are equal is total BS. What other cultures produce all this beautiful painting and all this beautiful sculpture? None of them. None of them even produces 5% of it. Okay, so what I'm saying is the Christian metaphysics, man is created in the image of God, therefore he too can be a creator. And it's a glory to God to create beautiful things. That generates beautiful art. And you can recognize a lot of these statues. There's the Laocoon statue, which I think Michelangelo made, even though he said he discovered it from the Greeks, of Laocoon, who was the sort of prophet in Troy who said, don't take that horse in, the Trojan horse, and they didn't listen to him. And Minerva, Athena, sent snakes to envelop him. There's Hercules statue right there. There's the Dying Gaul statue. The Belvedere Apollo is back in there, and you got all these magnificent paintings, the Colosseum of Rome, the Pantheon. It's awesome stuff. Okay? And people, you should cherish Western civilization and teach it to your young and stand up for it. Otherwise, they'll topple all these statues, destroy these buildings, and you'll be just stuck in modern third world slavery. Okay? And I'm proud of the fact that Christianity, it's the best at anything to do with art. There's no other culture, religion, or anything that's even in the ballpark for architecture, science, and most things. And people should be proud of that, okay? Everyone's happy to talk about the problems with Christianity, but let's talk about the good things too. Okay? All right, now here's a beautiful painting. This is called The Heavenly and the Earthly Trinities, and the painter is Bartolome Murillo. And, I love the faces. So there's the Heavenly Trinity is Jesus Christu, the Holy Spirit, and God the Father. And then the Earthly Trinity is Virgin Mary, the Mother of Christ, and Joseph, the Father. Okay? And it's just beautiful. Look how the the warmth in these faces. You feel like they're like real people. You could know them. And here's another painting by Murillo, and they're just fantastic. This is the Our Lady of the Rosary with the baby Jesus, and just look at those faces. They're fantastic. They're magnificent. Okay, these are pinnacles of art. Okay, and he's somebody most people never even heard of him. Bartolome Murillo, Spanish painter. Okay, now here's a little bit of a crazy painting. Oh, this is a very sad painting. This is from King Herod. This is the massacre of the innocents. He heard the prophecy that the Messiah was born, so he slew all the babies of that age. And that's how sick King Herod was. That's what you get with paganism. That's what you get with that type of metaphysical values. Okay, here's a painting called Christ in the House of His Parents. This is by John Everett Millais. And that was part of, Christ's flight into Egypt there for that last painting, Massacre of the Innocents. Okay, so Everett Millais was part of the school of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood. And this was sort of the Victorian Renaissance in England. The Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood were a bunch of artists who were relatively poor, but John Ruskin, the art critic in England, really stood up for them and promoted them in a big way. John Ruskin was super famous Oxford professor, art critic. And he said, the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood is great. What they meant by Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood was that they were trying to go back to the mentality of art before Raphael. They thought that Raphael had trended a little bit into too much beauty and not enough emotional love, if you will, of Christianity. And what had angered John Ruskin, he's a bit of a Bible-thumping, sort of almost Calvinist, part Scottish, Presbyterian and whatnot, but still very old school in his religious thinking. And he was angered by the idea that in the Stanza Signatura room in the Vatican, that Raphael had put the Mount Parnassus of the poets of ancient Greece at the same height as the Disputa religious celebration painting, and he felt that that was a degradation of religion. So I think Ruskin overdoes it, but anyways, Millais was this great painter. So there's Jesus Christu with Joseph the carpenter, with his mother, and there's John the Baptist and others looking on. Okay, here is Jesus Amongst the Doctors of Religion, okay, from 1884. And this is, when he's in the synagogue that he's teaching the elders, and they're amazed at how much he knows. Okay, all right, so that's, you can look it up there, the passage from Luke if you care to. Okay. Here's a painting of John Ruskin. And Ruskin, he's a genius. He's kind of sad and pathetic in some other ways, but they always are. If you wanted somebody who's totally normal, if you want a genius who's totally normal, you won't have any geniuses. Okay, a lot of times they got a problem in their life and they're overcompensating for it. So, I love Ruskin, even though I know exactly, I read a whole bunch of books about him. I know how sad and pathetic he is. I still love the guy. He did so many good things. And he didn't have to. He was a millionaire in those days. He could have done whatever he wanted, and he chose to do a bunch of things to help society. Okay, here's some quotes of Ruskin. And by the way, he loved the painting called The Triumph of Death by Francesco Trani and Orcagna in 1339 because of its devotion to God and its love of God. And he felt, like I said, the modern art was trending in the direction of becoming corrupted for beauty and technique, whereas it was moving away from God. And these are quotes by Ruskin. Better the rudest work that tells a story than the richest without meaning. Music, when healthy, is the teacher of perfect order, and when depraved, is the teacher of perfect disorder. He also said, all music is either instruction or infection. All great art is the work of a whole living creature, body and soul, and chiefly the soul. Truth, beauty, and religion are bound together. Ruskin had noticed that the people in the Middle Ages who built the Gothic cathedrals to their god were magnificent, but in the Victorian age, Englishmen everywhere were working in filthy factories covered in smoke and pollution and soot, and he said they didn't live in the dark ages, we do. He said industrialism is more than the age of machines. It turns men into machines. The teaching of art is the teaching of all things. Art is the seeking for ideal truth. All art is great praise. All great art is praise. Education is the leading of humans to that which is best, and making what is best out of them. The training which makes men happiest in themselves also makes them most serviceable to others. Okay, and then he was a contemporary with Thomas Carlyle, who was actually one of Ruskin's mentors. And he had asked the question, where are these railroads taking us? And Charles Dickens answered, the railroads are leading us to a spiritual death when they make us forget who we are. And so the question now becomes for us of the current age, where is the internet taking us? Is it taking us to the concentration camps? Is it taking us to centralization of everything so we're easier to control? What is the purpose of the internet? Is it to educate us or to dehumanize us? All right, so here is the Stanza Signatura. And here you can see the magnificent School of Athens. A lot of people think it's the greatest painting of all time. It's magnificent. It's a celebration of, Greek philosophy, Roman architecture, the Renaissance itself. There's Michelangelo right there. There's Diogenes there. So many other famous persons there, of course, is Plato and Aristotle, and Socrates is teaching right there. So anyways, here is Mount Parnassus, and it's going to have Homer and a lot of the other great Greek poets and writers and whatnot. And he put this at the same height as the Disputa and communion painting, Sacramento communion painting, which Ruskin felt was a great insult to religion. This was all done in the early 1500s. Okay, commissioned by Pope Julius, what we talked about earlier. Okay, now here I want to share with you, this is a speech by John Ruskin in 1853. And this was part of his lead up to the pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood being celebrated, because they were going back to the ancient techniques to celebrate religion and God and emotion and respect, and they were great, okay, and he helped them be successful. But anyways, here is this 1853 speech of John Ruskin. There have been 3 ages in painting. Okay, let me get to where I can kind of see the words as I read it. The classical period ending with the fall of Rome. The medieval period extending up to Raphael. And then following Raphael is the modern era. Classicism art was pagan. Medieval art was Christian. Modern art denies Christ. All ancient art was religious. All modern art is profane. The ancient art was moral. The modern art is immoral. In medieval art, truth is first and beauty second. In modern art, beauty is first and truth is second. All ancient and medieval art was religious. All modern art is profane. This distinction is as firm as light and darkness. He who offers God a second place offers him no place. Raphael, on one Vatican wall, wrote, "This is the kingdom of theology, as it is presided over by Christ." And on the other wall he wrote, "This is the kingdom of poetry, presided over by Apollo." And from that spot and that hour, the intellect and the art of Italy date their degradation. Raphael elevated the creations of fancy to the same rank as the objects of faith on the other. The doom of art and of Europe went forth from that chamber. The medieval principles led up to Raphael. The modern principles lead down from him. And just as classical art was great in building to its gods, and medieval art was great in building to its God, modern art is not great because it builds to no God. Okay, what an awesome speech. Talk about binary opposition there. It's fantastic. Antithesis, it's awesome. I think that's the greatest speech ever in the history of art. And of course he exaggerated, but he has a good point. Okay, well anyways, that concludes chapter 5 on the birth and the childhood of Christ. For the next one, we'll talk about the ministry years of Christ. Hope that was interesting.